The myth of meritocracy, why credentials aren't enough for Black women in America. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here today. I want to begin by acknowledging the extraordinary woman whose insights form the foundation of today's talk. Kimberly Makle is not just an advocate, she is a visionary whose work has fundamentally transformed how we understand the intersection of race, gender, and professional advancement in America. Through her tireless commitment to illuminating the invisible barriers facing Black women in professional spaces, she has created ripples of change that continue to expand across institutions, policies, and lives. Kimberly doesn't just speak truth to power. She embodies the kind of courageous leadership that makes genuine transformation possible. Her dedication to creating systemic change has inspired countless individuals to look beyond individual achievement toward collective liberation. The insights I share today come from our recent conversation, which left me both challenged and changed. We love stories about merit, don't we? Those inspiring narratives about hard work paying off, about credentials opening doors, about determination leading to success. These stories comfort at us. They tell us the world makes sense. They tell us that if we just work hard enough, get enough degrees, accumulate enough experience, we'll be rewarded accordingly. But what if I told you that for millions of Americans, this fundamental premise is fundamentally flawed? What if I told you that for Black women in particular, the equation of merit plus opportunity rarely equals success? We've been sold a powerful myth, the myth that credentials are the great equalizer, that education is the ultimate pathway to prosperity, that once you've earned those letters after your name, the playing field somehow magically levels itself. This myth isn't just misleading, it's dangerous because it blinds us to the reality that many face every day. In my conversation with Kimberly Makle, she shared a startling insight that challenges how most of us think about professional advancement. Despite the common narrative of progress, Black women continue to face deeply entrenched wage gaps and underrepresentation in leadership roles, even when they are highly qualified, even when they have done everything right. Let me share some numbers that should disturb us all. In New York State, Black women earn only 66 cents for every dollar a white man earns. Think about that for a moment. 66 cents on the dollar. This means that a Black woman would need to work until she's 81 years old to match what a white man earns by age 60. Over a lifetime, this translates to more than $1 million dollars in lost wages. $1 million? Dollars? Not because of different qualifications, not because of different work ethics, but because of a system that consistently undervalues Black women's contributions. This is an ancient history. This is happening right now in 2025. Let me tell you about what's happening in New York. In 2025, State Senate Majority Leader Andrea Stewart Cousins led legislative advocacy focused on raising awareness through Black women's Equal Pay Day campaigns and pushing for transparency laws. This didn't happen in a vacuum. It came after years of grassroots organizing that highlighted how anti DEI efforts threatened previous gains. It required coalition building among legislators to strengthen reform efforts. The result? Increased public awareness, new state initiatives aimed at closing wage gaps, and ongoing monitoring by advocacy groups. This movement has helped inspire similar campaigns nationwide and kept pressure on employers and policymakers for measurable change. But the wage gap is just one dimension of a much larger problem. Let's look at education. We're often told that education is the answer to inequality. Get more degrees, get more credentials, climb that ladder. Yet the data tells a different story. Consider school superintendents across America. According to a 2025 survey by the American Association of School Administrators, despite high rates of doctoral attainment among Black superintendents, 80% hold doctoral degrees, their representation remains below 5% nationally. Think about that disconnect. 80% with doctoral degrees, less than 5% representation. This disparity has deep historical roots. After the Brown v. Board of Education desegregation rulings, many districts demoted or displaced qualified Black educators and leaders, a legacy still felt today. Even now, Black educational leaders face ongoing bias, particularly against those perceived as DEI hires, regardless of their qualifications. The message becomes painfully clear. Credentials alone don't guarantee equity. You can have the degrees, you can have the experience, you can check every box and still face barriers that have nothing to do with your qualifications and everything to do with systemic bias. This reality extends beyond education. When economic downturns hit, Black women are often the first to feel the impact and the last to recover. In April 2025, job losses among Black women were higher than any other racial or gender group during economic shocks, revealing precariousness even for skilled workers. Historic disinvestment means many Southern states see disproportionate numbers of working class and professional Black women affected whenever cuts hit public sector jobs hardest. Community organizations responded by providing emergency relief funds and training programs targeting displaced workers while lobbying government agencies for better safety nets specific to vulnerable demographics. These efforts secured new grants and funding streams supporting reskilling initiatives specifically benefiting affected groups. But these responses, while necessary, are treating symptoms rather than addressing the underlying disease. What these examples reveal is a fundamental truth that Kimberly Makle emphasized in our conversation. The challenges Black professionals face aren't just individual, they're rooted in persistent systemic inequities like pay gaps and lack of advancement opportunities. This isn't about isolated incidents of discrimination. This is about patterns, systems, structures. And here's where we need to pause and reflect. Because if we truly believe in the values we claim to uphold, fairness, opportunity, merit, then we must confront this disconnect between rhetoric and reality. The poet Audre Lorde once said, "Without community, there is no liberation." This wisdom resonates deeply with what Kimberly shared about the importance of collective advocacy. Addressing these disparities requires more than personal resilience. It demands policy changes, organizational commitment, and collective action from communities and allies. As Dr. Maya Angelou reminded us, when you know better, you do better. Now that we know better about these persistent inequities, what will we do? This is where the concept of a soft girl era takes on profound meaning beyond its popular culture connotations. For Black women who have spent years in survival mode, leading teams, raising families, holding down households, carrying communities, there comes a point of exhaustion, a point where shifting from constantly grinding to finally grounding becomes not just desirable, but essential. But this shift isn't just about self care in the commercialized sense, it's about a spiritual, emotional, and mental recalibration. It's about healing from trauma. It's about dropping the superwoman cape because softness is not weakness. It's a radical act of self love. It's about learning to say no without guilt. It's about self love and authenticity. It's about reclaiming an identity not shaped by family expectations, church roles, or boardroom rules, but the real self that's been waiting to bloom. For many, faith serves as a foundation for this transformation. As Proverbs 31:25 reminds us, she is clothed with strength and dignity, and she laughs without fear of the future. This strength comes not from constant striving, but from knowing one's inherent worth. The affirmation becomes, I am enough. My worth is not determined by my productivity. I deserve rest. I deserve peace. I deserve joy. But here's the challenge. How do we reconcile this personal journey towards softness with the continued need to address systemic barriers? How do we balance self care with the ongoing fight for equity? This is where collective action becomes crucial. Because while individual Black women shouldn't have to bear the burden of fixing broken systems, their voices and experiences must guide the solutions. Organizations must move beyond diversity statements to meaningful action. This means transparent pay practices, promotion pathways that don't rely on subjective criteria, mentorship programs that actually lead to advancement, accountability for equity outcomes. Policymakers must prioritize legislation that addresses structural inequities, equal pay laws with teeth, family friendly policies that recognize the disproportionate caregiving responsibilities many women shoulder, educational investments that create true pipelines to leadership. And for those of us with privilege, whether that's white privilege, male privilege, class privilege, or other forms, we must use that privilege to amplify rather than overshadow, to listen rather than lecture, to follow rather than lead. I stand before you today not just to share information, but to ignite transformation. The statistics I've shared aren't just numbers. They represent real lives, real dreams deferred, real potential unrealized. And that's not just a loss for Black women, it's a loss for all of us. Imagine the innovations never created, the problems never solved, the leadership never exercised because we've allowed systems to waste human potential on an enormous scale. Imagine what our workplaces, our communities, our world could look like if we truly valued merit regardless of gender or race. So today I'm challenging you to move beyond awareness to action. If you're an employer, audit your pay practices, examine your promotion patterns, create accountability for equity outcomes. If you're an educator, question how you evaluate potential and performance. If you're a policymaker, craft legislation that addresses structural barriers, not just individual behaviors. And if you're someone who has benefited from the current system, use your position to create change. Mentor, sponsor, advocate, share power, redistribute opportunity. Because in the end, the myth of meritocracy doesn't just hurt those who are marginalized, it diminishes us all. It robs us of the full spectrum of human brilliance. It keeps us tethered to old patterns that no longer serve anyone. The future belongs to those who can imagine and create systems worthy of all our gifts. Systems where credentials actually mean what they're supposed to mean, where merit isn't just a myth, but a lived reality. As Kimberly Makle so powerfully articulated, progress isn't measured by individual success stories, but by real shifts toward equity across entire systems. The question is not whether we can create such systems. The question is whether we have the courage to try. Thank you